Good evening and welcome to the annual Baltimore City Board of Estimates Taxpayers Night. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Taxpayer Night provides the public with an opportunity to comment on the preliminary budget for fiscal 2019 that was recommended to the Board of Estimates by the Department of Finance on March the 28th. As you may have seen coming in, the Budget Office is hosting this annual budget pop-up in the lobby. Representatives from city agencies and partner organizations are here to represent and discuss the investment proposed in each of the mayor's 5 pillars. I encourage you to stop by and learn more about the fiscal 2019 budget. At this time, I would like to introduce the members of the Board of Estimates, starting on my left, which would be Mayor Catherine Pugh, City Solicitor Andre Davis, and to my right, our Comptroller, Comptroller Joan Pratt, and to her right, the Public Works Director, Rudy Chow, and to his right, Bob Simony. Okay. The preliminary fiscal year 2019 operating budget has been recommended at $2.8 billion. This is an increase of $56.3 million, or 2% above the fiscal year 2018 adopted budget. The capital plan is recommended at $618 million, which is $499 million, or 44.7% lower than fiscal 2018. The members of the Board of Estimates are very interested in listening to your views and observation concerning this budget. This is our opportunity as the board to hear from Baltimore City residents. This is your opportunity as city residents to share your thoughts regarding city spending, budget priorities, and other fiscal concerns. Since we are here to listen, we do not intend to enter into dialogue with you as you speak, but may ask you to clarify a point. Anyone wishing to address the board must sign up to do so, and you can do that in the back. Sign-up sheets are also located at the table at the entrance of the lobby. Speakers will be heard in the order in which they have signed up. Each time I announce the name of the next speaker, I will identify that next person so you can be prepared to come up to the microphone. We ask that you limit your remarks to 2 minutes so that everyone can have an opportunity to speak. Your time cannot be yielded to another speaker. Time will be kept by the Budget Director, Mr. Simony, here at the front of the room. He's to the right. He will alert you when you have 30 seconds left by holding up a yellow paddle. At that time, you should start bringing your remarks to a close. Mr. Simony will also alert you when you are out of time by holding up a red paddle. If you have a handout or a copy of your remarks in writing, please give them to Mr. Huber from our office. Where are you, Michael? Stand up. Mr. Huber was sitting right there. He will distribute them to the board members. And finally, please turn off all cell phones and pages. Let's begin. Before we hear the first speaker, Budget Director Bob Simony will give a brief overview presentation on the fiscal 2019 budget.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. My name is Bob Simony, City Budget Director. And before we hear from the public, we wanted to do just a quick, very quick 5-minute overview of the recommendations in the budget for this year just to give you some context for your comments. So let's go ahead and take it away. So behind me, you see the budget timeline, and you'll notice that the yellow mark here is where we are in the process. So the next step in the process after we hear feedback from the public tonight is that we will present, the Board of Estimates will vote on the final budget on May 2nd. That budget then gets presented and introduced into City Council, and City Council will hold hearings on the budget in May into early June, and then vote on the budget in June. So next, wanted to give a brief overview of what the overall budget looks like. It's $3.4 billion. About $600 million of that is capital spending, and the other $2.8 billion is operating cost. Operating costs are the cost to run the city on a day-to-day basis. The capital budget is for infrastructure investment. And we also break our budget down into funds. We look at general funds, utility funds, and grants. General funds is discretionary money. The revenue we receive is from mostly taxes and fees. From both residents and visitors, and we have the most discretion on how we can spend those funds. Enterprise funds are business-like entities, so think for us the big ones are the water and wastewater utilities. where we charge a direct fee to a resident or consumer for their use of that particular service. And then grant funds are funds we get from other governments or private organizations, either the federal government, state government, or private foundations or businesses. When we built the budget this year, we built it around the mayor's 5 pillars. Her 5 pillars, as you can see behind me: public safety, education and youth engagement, accountability and transparency, quality of life, and economic development and jobs. So we had a particular focus this year on public safety because the mayor, with the mayor's emphasis on violence reduction. So some of the investments, a lot of the investments we have were in that area, were in that realm. And just a couple of highlights on the budget for this year. I'm sorry, I want to stay out of the way. So we are funding a bunch of new strategies to support the mayor's violence reduction initiative. The first one is the ROCA program, in which we'll be targeting high-risk men between the ages of 17 to 24. It's a wraparound mentorship program to make sure that those folks have the support they need. You'll see some of the other items here. We've been providing funding for what we call rapid response service to provide quicker turnaround service in the violence reduction zones in the city, and we're hoping that that has a positive impact in the community, and we think it already has. If you could go back just for a second. We have funding for 100 new police officer positions in the budget, and we also have funding for, we have a total of $370 million of funding for support for city schools. That's $32.3 million above the statutory levels. It's really an extraordinary commitment the city's made to help the city schools to kind of bridge them through the financial issues that came up last year. On the next slide, we also are making a contribution into our second contribution into the Children and Youth Fund. It's $12.4 million this year. And also, of course, the aforementioned contribution for the city schools for this year. And related to education, next, we get a lot of questions. The next 2 slides, we get a lot of questions, comments from citizens about school funding versus public safety funding, or school funding versus police funding. Just wanted to remind folks that the school funding, as you can see behind me, there's $1.3 billion, their operating budget is $1.3 billion, and only a small portion of that comes from the city. That is by design. The state law is designed so that many jurisdictions, and jurisdictions with a lower tax base, Baltimore being one of those, gets more aid from the state. So we have contributed our required amount to the schools and more on top of that. Whereas next, an agency like police, for example, a public safety agency, it's up to the local jurisdiction to fund that service largely. Only 1% of their budget comes from the state sources. So just wanted to give that as context because that's a question we get quite a bit from residents and citizens. A couple other highlights. So we talked about the Violence Reduction Initiative and the Rapid Response Services. We're also contributing 2 more to homeless services this year for outreach workers and for additional sheltering. That ends my comments. Again, there's much more to learn about the budget. Our budget is available online at bbmr.baltimorecity.gov. You can read there's a document, the preliminary budget document. It has a purple cover. There's a lot more details about many city services. So we encourage you tonight to give your comments directly to the board. And if you have questions, our staff is available. You can always reach out to me or our staff, and we'd be happy to answer more questions about the budget for you. But without further ado, I want to turn it over to the citizens tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I'd like to recognize I think I saw her. Is State's Attorney Mosby still here?
Yes, she out to get some snacks.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I got it. Okay, the first speaker is Stephanie Murdoch.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Murdoch, and I am the president of the Skate Park of Baltimore. We're a 10-year-old nonprofit organization dedicated to the construction of public concrete skate parks in the city of Baltimore. In full disclosure, I am a city employee, but tonight I'm here as a taxpayer, and a homeowner, and an advocate, and most importantly, a skateboarder. It took us 10 years to build our first skate park in Hamden, which is now open and serving hundreds of youth every day. And my biggest regret is that we missed an entire generation of youth. Many of the members of the City Council and Madam Mayor were at the grand opening of the skate park, and they saw how many youth this public facility serves. It's time for the city to take the reins and build a skate park system for the city of Baltimore. It's time for the city to adequately fund the Department of Recreation and Parks, which its budget has been historically stagnant. Their capital budget is only around $20 million a year. That's like maybe 2 recreation centers. We need to provide safe places for our youth to skate. Did you know that skateboarding is going to be in the Olympics in 2020? How great would it be if we could see a kid from Baltimore on a Wheaties box? Skateboarding is not just skateboards are not just a vehicle, but they are a vehicle to change lives. Many of the young people in Baltimore never leave their neighborhoods, let alone the country, so the thought of using skateboarding as a vehicle to see the world and change the world really inspired me to continue to fight for these young people. Look, Wednesday night is my skate night. I was like, should I go tonight? Should I not? You know, but until we have adequate recreational facilities for our youth, I'm going to keep fighting. And we can't rely on the nonprofits to do all the work. We need the city to step up, adequately fund the Department of Recreation and Parks, and continue to look out for our youth. Let's not take another 10 years to build the next skate park. Let's not skip any more generations.
Thank you. Amanda Bellies or Billies? Bellies, okay.
Hold it down.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Amanda Bellis, and I'm a Baltimore City resident. I'm a Baltimore City resident and also a taxpayer. So I have 3 issues, 3 different issues. Obviously, I don't have time to cover all 3, so I sent information on those 3 issues to my City Council representative, and tonight I'm going to focus on 1 issue. So in the entire 120-page proposed budget plan, specifically under the quality of life section, there is nothing in regard to improving the quality of life for persons with disabilities. Madam Mayor, your own office on Disabilities website states that 15.1% of the city's population is considered disabled. Yet, for example, if you're in a wheelchair or, unable to climb stairs for whatever reason, you're not able to access numerous buildings and numerous businesses in this city. That's a problem. Not only does that affect those that are disabled, but that also means that those places of business are not receiving business. There's also a lot of public events, public meetings that are held in non-accessible buildings. So this is a problem, citywide problem. I really encourage you as the Board of Estimates to look at using some of that budget to research this issue and really look into this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I really don't want to mess up this name. Nabil Aziz.
Hello.
Hello.
And I have written copies of some testimony that I'll bring up after I'm done. Yeah. So there is copies of written testimony for myself and some of the people who will follow me, and a copy of a report that we are going to be referencing. But hello, good evening, Mayor Pugh, Honorable President, and members of the Board of Estimates. My name is Nabil Aziz, and I'm a community organizer at Communities United, a grassroots membership organization of low to moderate income individuals and families in Maryland. Our mission is leadership development and community organizing that builds power to win transformative change in our community. Our community organizing model hinges on intensive member engagement and leadership development, aiming to build leadership among the most directly impacted by injustices, including racism, poverty, trauma, addiction, and criminalization. In July of 2017, the city of Baltimore was highlighted in the Freedom to Thrive, Reimagining Safety and Security in Our Communities report, a report released by our national affiliate, the Center for Popular Democracy, in collaboration with Law for Black Lives and BYP 100. This report detailed how over the last 30 years, local governments around the country have dramatically increased their spending on criminalization, policing, and mass incarceration, while drastically cutting investment in basic infrastructure and slowing investment in social safety net programs. Freedom to Thrive found that for mental health services, youth programming, and infrastructure such as transit access and housing to be consistent community safety priorities, not police. The report analyzed Baltimore's fiscal year 2017 budget and found that we spend $772 per capita on police spending, at least 25% more than any of the other 12 cities studied. And just for a frame of reference, every year our police budget has gone up, so this is 2017. Our population has been steadily declining, yet the amount of money we spend on policing has increased year after year after year. The irresponsible spending must stop. Today we reflect on the fact that 50 years ago today, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated because of his commitment to racial, social, and economic justice. When he was only 26, Dr. King's leadership in the Montgomery bus boycott propelled him into leadership of a national movement, and at the age of 39, his final action was standing with sanitation workers on strike in Memphis. He is often associated with the quote, "Budgets are moral documents." His prophetic words still ring true today. Investing so much of Baltimore's money in policing is immoral. Not only is it immoral, it's simply stupid. Study after study shows that a living wage, access to holistic healthcare services and treatment, educational opportunity, and stable housing are far more successful in reducing crime than police or prisons. I am very disappointed in this budget proposal in that once again it increases police spending and fails to properly fund the things that our city needs the most. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Pranita Taylor.
I'm sorry. Excuse me, I have a disability. I have 2 strokes recently. I'm sorry. I might talk too fast sometimes. Good evening, Mayor Pugh, Honorable President, and members of the Board of Estimates. My name is Pranita Taylor. I'm a member of Communities United. I would like to reflect on last summer Freedom to Thrive report, which highlighted the Baltimore City. I believe it is immoral for the city to spend more money on policy and social control than spends on building the quality of life for Baltimore citizens. As someone who is currently fighting for a safe, livable, healthy home for me and my daughter, it saddens my heart that I have to come here tonight on the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King to protest this budget. For months, I have been trying to get the City Housing and Community Development Department to intervene to protect me from the slum landlords I have. Inspector from Housing have reportedly come out to my property and written numerous citations to my landlord, specifying code violations. To date, none of these code violations has been fixed as of today. On behalf of any Baltimore renters experiencing similar housing and social control tactics, such as policy, but to invest in my and every Baltimore resident's quality of life. I'm thankful that the City Council, with their mayor's support, is advancing a bill that will require all rental properties in the city to be licensed and inspected. While this is very important to improve housing conditions, it could be some vulnerable, low-income residents at risk of losing their housing if some lords still refuse to properly maintain their properties. So I ask that you earmark $100,000 $100,000 for relocation assistance for these vulnerable residents like me. This is necessary so as not to increase the already growing population of Baltimore homeless people. I am very disappointed in the budget proposal, and that once again it increases police spending and fails to properly fund the things that our city needs, such as healthy homes and relocation assistance for Baltimore's most vulnerable residents like me.
Thank you. Thomas Darden.
Good evening, Mayor Pugh, Honorable President, and members of the Board of Estimates. My name is Thomas Starr again, and I'm a member of Communities United. I'm actually the chairman of Quality of Life Committee. I would like to reflect on last summer's Freedom to Thrive report, which highlighted Baltimore City. I think it is shameful that our city officials would present a budget to us that proposes spending $492.3 million on policing. As someone who has been previously incarcerated, I know for a fact that a large part of this money would be better spent on a reentry service for returning citizens such as myself. It would be much better spent on diversion programs that are racially equitable and that prevent people from entering the criminal justice system in the first place. We know that policing and incarceration do not work to reduce crime. If policing and incarceration worked, Baltimore City would be the safest city in the country. Unfortunately, we continue to lead the pack among the country's deadliest big cities year after year. Instantly is often defined as doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Baltimore, like many other cities, is filled with people who have been deeply traumatized, men who have been emasculated and deprived since we were born. I ask you today, why spend taxpayer money on such destructive things? What we need is good leadership, people to focus on harm reduction and restoring trust amongst our residents. Our mothers, sisters, brothers, fathers, cousins, aunts, and uncles are dying every day from overdoses or some sort of violent act. Let FY 2019 be the model. Baltimore City is the center for national opioid crisis. Instead of spending $492.3 million on policing, how about instead significantly increase what we spend on health care so to fund harm reduction solutions for our city? Let's fund overdose prevention sites. Let's make that all of our first responders are trained to use and required to carry life-saving overdose reversal drugs like naloxone. Let's make sure that we fully fund needle exchange programs in the city. As a city, we must find solutions that put people in treatment instead of jail, support recovery, and reduce harm. I am very disappointed in the budget proposal and that once again it increases police spending and fails to properly fund the things our city needs, such as reentry services, diversion programs, and harm reductions. In order to fix the problem, you need to really come to us and ask us how to fix the problem. We know what to do. We can help you fix the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Tenaya Rogers.
As you can see, I'm not Tenaya Rogers. However, she gave me her testimony because she couldn't be here. She's a student, so she didn't, yeah. So, hey, hi, everyone. I'm Trey Murphy, by the way, but her testimony is included inside your packet.
Tell us your name. Your name.
Trey Murphy.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll be reading her testimony. Her testimony is inside the folder that you all was handed with all of the other testimony. Good evening, Mayor Pugh, Honorable President, members of the Board of Estimates. My name is Tenaya Rogers. I am a youth organizer at Communities United. I am an 8th grade student at William Penderhurst Elementary School. I would like to reflect on last summer's Freedom to Thrive report, which highlights Baltimore City. I think that it is shameful that our city officials will present a budget to us that proposes spending over $500 million on policing. I am only 13 years old, but I know that policing and incarceration does not help youth like me to become productive adults. I also know that a full and all-inclusive approach to education does. At the end of last year, my classmates, our parents, our community partners from our school had to go to the school board to fight the recommended closure of our school. The reason the CEO recommended closing our school was not because we were failing academically. It was because it was not because of safety concerns in our schools. It was not because we were relocated to a new 21st century school building. Our school was closing because the cost to operate our school outweighed the benefit of keeping my school, the only middle school in Sandtown. This is unacceptable and makes students feel like they are not valued in Baltimore City. Mayor Pugh, if you can find funding for DC busing and T-shirt, I also expect you to find funding for books and school uniforms. Last year, I testified on the budget as well. At that time, it was to request more money for community schools out of school time like mine. Community schools are important to Baltimore because they look at students as whole people, and find ways to address all of their needs inside and outside of school that will affect them being able to come to school, learn, and be a good student. I am very disappointed in this budget proposal in that, once again, it increases police spending and fails to properly fund the things that our city needs, such as a significant increase in city funding for education, school infrastructure, and out-of-school monies to fully fund community schools like mine.
Sarita Jackson. She couldn't be here, but you have a copy of her testimony. Okay, thank you. Lawrence Brown.
Mic check! Mic check!
Hello, my name is Lawrence Brown. And for the people that are standing, we see that the people in blue represent the amount of money that we're putting into the police. The people here in orange, purple, pink, white, this represents the amount of money we're spending in health, housing, arts, parks, and other places like civil rights combined. In other words, we're spending more on police than we do on supporting life in our city. And so we have maintained an apartheid budget long enough. We have come to say, invest in us. See, we learned a long time ago, there is no justice. It is just us. So we will be coming with the people's budget, demanding that you listen to us. You see, Dr. King said, we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. So we are here to provide the unrest. You see, Baltimore police have shown us that we can't trust them, and somehow you still invest more in them than us. So we demand that you invest in us, less cops and more schools. That way people are given the tools to survive. Our people's budget will revive quality jobs and housing instead of allowing the police to keep clowning our city. It's a pity, despite the murders and corruption by BPD, you still see a need to invest in them. So we will be creating a version of the budget that will provide a better outcome. And we refuse to succumb to what appears to be the status quo. It's time to let go of the norm and invest in us. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. So Mayor Pugh, we implore you once again, stop spending more money on police than health, housing, arts, parks, schools out of our general fund combined. Thank you.
Thank you. Philip Bass. Philip Bass. Okay.
Can't stop, won't stop, kill the cops or it's cell block.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is my second time coming here for Taxpayers Night, and I'm still talking about the same thing. We do not have a playground at Murray Robin Recreation Center / elementary school, and the basketball court is in severe disrepair. I come here and I listen to someone talk about a skate park in their community, a dog park in their community, but yet kids in our community can't even get a playground. All right? And please, and by the way, I might as well bring it home. Mayor, I spoke to you on September 15, 2016 at Morgan's Homecoming, and I stated that I was going to speak up about this. Nothing has changed. We need a playground. I pay taxes, right? And it amazes me because I pay taxes, and it seems like my tax dollars are going every other place except for my community. All right? As Marcus Garvey once stated, subjugation, we're not worth the playground. Exploitation, you're taking my money, we can't get a playground. And elimination, when a subject comes up, it's ignored. Okay? So please, whatever you can do, please see if we can get a playground in the budget. Because I look at the budget, you know, I'm sorry, I'm an old guy going back to college, and I extrapolated the budget, and it comes to 0.04% of the budget it would take for us to have the basketball court refurbished and a playground at that site. Now, when I talk to Baltimore City Schools, they say it's Parks and Recs. When I talk to Parks and Recs, they say it's Baltimore City Schools, right? And let me quote one other person, Malcolm X, lied to, lied on, and lied about. Okay? And that's what's going on here with respect to this playground. I've tried everything I can do. I've been on TV, get ready to go on TV again. I'm gonna do everything I can to get a playground, because there's nothing worse than standing outside on a summer day and kids at a recreation center, they're sitting on the grass where dogs do whatever, and there's no playground for kids for recreation, anything. You know, I'm not talking about doing a whole bunch of stuff. Just a little bit of money for a playground. Just a little bit of money. If you can do it, please, please help out. And as I told the person from Baltimore City Schools who called me and says, well, can't you get a grant to get a playground? Hey, I pay taxes. I've been living at that house since 1958. I've been putting money in that community since 1958. My mother died in 86, and I've been paying the property tax all that time. And all this time, we can't get a playground. Whenever I talk to somebody, it's always, it's not my job, it didn't happen on my watch, I'm gonna see what I can do. You're either the problem or the solution. Please be the solution for our community and put a playground, refurbish the basketball court at Murray Robin Recreation Center. Thank you very much.
Anthony Williams. Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me? All right, you can go ahead, sir.
My name is Anthony Williams. Born and raised in Baltimore City on the east side. It took me 54 years to get a Section 8 voucher in an apartment, and I have one here in Baltimore. Fund the trust for housing. We need to spend money on housing. We have a housing trust fund, I think with $2 million in it, which is a drop in the hat compared to all the communities and the neighborhoods in Baltimore that needs more money in the trust to create housing. I live a few blocks away from my high school where I went to, Samuel Gompers. It's abandoned. I walk and see abandoned schools. I see abandoned properties in my neighborhood, in my beloved city where I was born and raised. Young, how could you let this happen to Baltimore City long as you've been involved in government? I just want to say that to you. All those abandoned properties, what happened? Who made the decision? Who made our city look like this? Why? All the politicians involved should be held accountable for that, because homelessness can be resolved tomorrow if you fixed all the buildings and put the money where it should be. And the money, I'm not sure what numbers, people over profit, dollar for dollar per person, fix Baltimore. Use the right resources. Stop lying about the funds and the money. We can't. Every homeless person I talk to always relate to what? We could fix these buildings. We need housing. They see the abandoned properties, they talk about it, but the city doesn't seem to move on it. So I believe that by funding the Housing Trust Fund, that will put a good dent and help our communities thrive through creating affordable housing to the most vulnerable, to folks that are able to pay 30% area median income so that they could be able to afford to live in the city and not getting driven away from the city. Thank you.
Sean Rawson. Sean Rawson. Okay. Shorty.
Mic check! Mic check!
My name's Shorty. I'm here as a taxpayer. My business is Shorty's Underground Ribs and Pit Beef. I've been in business for 20-something years. I'm also an advocate for prisoners' right and homelessness. All right, that's what I do. My business was making $260,000 a year. A percentage of my business, I was financing my activism. All right, taxpayer night. Y'all spending my tax dollars on the police that's incarcerating the black community. You militarizing the black community and you treating us like we live in Pakistan or Palestine with the Gaza Strip. And you ain't policing the same communities and you ain't not doing the same policing in other communities. When we talk about that police budget, you spending $400 million last year, it was $550, but in your budget, it ain't that money that you took from the citizens illegally, the properties that you took from the citizens illegally, the towing fees that you got to citizens illegally. That ain't in your budget, and you ain't compensating us for our losses. That's not in your budget. You feel me? You over-policing, and you over-policing not just in our streets, but in our pockets. You taking my money and spending it on incarcerating my community. Martin Luther King fought for social justice. He died for social justice. In 1968, I was 8 years old, 9 years old. I threw rocks at police, the same way that they throw rocks at the police here at the uprising. You recycling the same social ills and social injustices and thinking that it's gonna go away because a generation missed it. This millennial generation don't know about Jim Crow and white supremacy. I was born in '59. I see it up there on that table. Just cause y'all got black faces don't mean that y'all ain't passing out a white agenda of white supremacy when y'all passing these laws, when y'all passing these budgets, and y'all ain't doing nothing for the black community. You understand? Mic check!
Mic check!
Charlene Bradley. Charlene Bradley.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here as a concerned Baltimore City citizen, but also specifically a resident of the Brighton community. My concern for the Brighton community is the bulk trash dumping, the need for speed bumps on an intersection wherein one of the streets is a blinded area. And true, my concerns marginally are small by comparison to some that I've heard this evening. But I would say unto you, I've been repeatedly, as my neighbors of the Brighton community have repeatedly inclined our city officials to please help us with the dumping, the bulk trash dumping, the litter, the trash, and just to name a few. And pardon me, Mayor Pugh, no disrespect. My sisters, no disrespect to all of the council people, but I'm just hyped and on fire about this because I've been battling for so long, and my neighbors have been battling for so long to get some help and assistance with that bulk trash dumping, the speed humps that are necessary, and also the cameras that are necessary to stop some of this foolishness. Now, just to name a few, April of 2010, I did a walkthrough. We had a walkthrough with the Baltimore City Councilwoman, Rochelle Spector. I was joined by William Blonder of the Housing Authority, Steve Sharkey, Mike Jones, the supervisor. We did a walkthrough of the Brighton community just to let them see what the problems were. July the 28th of 10, you know, I sent another email to Baltimore City requesting a surveillance camera. In August of 2010, also I talked with Thomas Waugh. He called me in regard to the camera. There has been one camera placed, but there is a severe need, a dire need, for another camera placed at the intersection of Vincennes, Armstrong, and Ridge Avenues. December of 2010, I was visited by Michael Lewis. He was the supervisor. He was saying also that they would pay closer attention to that intersection and the bulk trash dumping. Again, I spoke with Thomas Waugh on March the 4th of 2011. December the 12th of 14, I even inclined Terrence Hancock. He's the chief of the property management with MTA, who also, that property is joined by the MTA. I was informed at that time, MTA no longer is in joint ownership of that property. It now belongs solely to Baltimore City. I'm just highlighting these efforts that have been made by I and my neighbors. Also, August the 6th and April the 6th and April the 23rd of 15, Susanna Feinstein, she did a walkthrough with me. There was also a visit by James Parley of the Transportation Association, the Traffic and Engineering Division. He did a walkthrough also. And I'm directing this specifically to Director Chow in regard to those services that are available through the Department of Transportation. It is necessary, please, that you incline those who are responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance of that area, not only of the area of Ridge, Armstrong, and Vincennes, but also of that entire Brighton community. In doing so, you'll not only enhance Brighton community, but you'll also enhance Baltimore City. Again, I incline you, please, those who are responsible for specifically that area, because it is an ongoing problem that will not cease. Just to cite another incident, February the 7th of this year, I called in another bulk trash dump complaint. That complaint was closed out. I called it in on the 7th of February. It was closed out on the 8th of February, that it had been done, hadn't been touched. So I'm here, please, as an impassioned resident, to please give us some help as I and my neighbors, we get out and we try to keep the area clean. If you will please, those who are responsible for that area, we need a camera there. We need also those 311 calls. They need to be addressed honestly when they're supposedly been cleaned and they close out the tickets. They haven't touched it. We also need the speed humps, because there is a blind street there, 6500 block of Vincennes Avenue. It is a blind area. You don't see the oncoming car until there's another car coming around the bend. It's just a terrible accident waiting to happen. A camera, and those who are responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance of that area, if they would do what they're being paid to do, then we would have a much better area and a much better city. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nikki Hill, I thought I had called you because I checked you off, maybe. But I do apologize.
It's okay. Good evening, Mayor Pugh, Honorable President, and members of the Board of Estimates. My name is Nikki Hill. I'm a member of Communities United. I also am an advocate for Black mental health, and I'm a parent that volunteers at Cherry Hill Elementary Middle. I'm here, I would like to reflect on the Freedom to Thrive report that Baltimore City was highlighted in last summer. I think that it is insane that our city officials would present a budget to us that proposes spending $292 $1.3 million on policing. Baltimore City is a place that is full of people who are dealing with mental health related issues. Most self-medicate by using these opiates. Some lose a grip on reality and end up homeless. Others are still suffering in silence and struggling to keep from falling apart. I did not know how bad things were until I was able to visit mental health provider, and in doing so, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Unfortunately, many people do not have any access to these mental health services they need. Instead of funding policing, we should be funding providers that are able to provide the mental health services that that are not cost prohibitive. Additionally, we should be funding solutions that aim to reduce the stigmas associated with seeking mental health assistance. I'm very disappointed in this budget proposal in that once again it increases police spending and fails to properly fund the things our city needs, such as easier access to mental health services for parents, students, and those with extreme needs. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now, I know we have a Mark Dennis. Is there another Mark Dennis? Okay. Because I thought it was our Mark Dennis. I thought Mark was playing a joke on me.
I'm not, but thank you for hosting Taxpayer Night. The property tax is way too high. We need to cut it. Here's why and how. Cutting it will increase and widen the tax base as human, social, and financial capital rushes to cash in, ultimately leading to more revenue for city services that we residents are seeking here tonight. Let's compare to DC, Boston, and San Francisco, because they were in very similar positions in the late 20th century in terms of crime and population decline. They then significantly reduced their property tax rates, and as a result, they were soon able to attract the capital necessary to reinvest in their neighborhoods and departments of government. Currently, only connected downtown developers receive those significant property tax cuts, and so we have a widening gap between two Baltimores, the tax-privileged downtown and tax-punished not downtown. For example, in communities like Lakeland, Cherry Hill, and Poppleton, where the median income and population are declining thanks to staggering disinvestment. Our own Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee has recently recognized that high property tax rates discourage investment, hence why they recently and unanimously voted to create another rise zone that will benefit from lower property tax rates and attract investment. Imagine if this applied to the entire city. As to how we get there, Loyola University of Maryland professor of economics Stephen Walters has published a how-to manual for turning cities around titled Boomtowns Restoring the Urban American Dream. He argues that we amend the city charter, cap the rate at a competitive level starting at a date certain 6 years hence. Developers will jump in to buy low, increasing transfer taxes, property values will rise, wage earners will return and bring added piggyback income taxes, put the gains in escrow, bridge any budget gap once the lower rate kicks in. In short, if we're short, use a TIF. Former mayoral candidate, council member, and chairperson of Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee, Mr. Carl Stokes, understood this problem and sought a charter amendment as well. So this is nothing new here. The potential upside, economically and politically, is vast. Imagine after 2020, the new census count shows we finally achieved citywide population growth. We'll have Inner Harbor 2.0, which itself will be much cleaner. Thanks to the Headworks project, more tax revenue will mean safer, cleaner, and paved streets, heating in our schools, fewer water and sewage breaks and spills. And then imagine it just might be the year with Buck, Adam, and Manny still on the team that the O's win the World Series. And so like last week's opening day, this is our very spring within the spring. So we come before our elected representatives and civil servants and ask them to consider a serious reduction in the property tax rate so that we can give present and future residents a compelling reason to cast down their buckets here in Baltimore. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Ferguson.
Yes, thank you, City Council members and the board and everybody in the audience, for that matter. I do agree with a lot of what Mark said. The city property taxes in this town are out of control. I've been here 15 years. I've lived in Seattle, Pittsburgh, New York, and all places that are prospering in the current environment and have built vibrant cities where everybody wins. A lot of the reasons for this is they attract investment, the property taxes are lower, they fund schools, they fund social programs, they fund parks, they fund green spaces. They do this because they have money, and they get the money because the taxes are low, the city is safe, and people want to invest. If you look, the one lady said, police, we spend more per capita on police than any city in America. That's amazing. We spend more per child than any city in America. That's amazing. Our schools are falling down. We're a national laughingstock when you look at, we're in the paper because, globally because our schools don't have heat. 50 years we've been dealing with this. I remember when I came here, I lived in Ellicott City for a couple of years, and my friends go, why are you moving to Baltimore? And I said, I believe in Baltimore. Baltimore has a lot of charm. Baltimore's nestled in between D.C., Philadelphia, you have New York, you have Boston. This town has more potential than any city on the East Coast. Have you ever walked into a 7-Eleven and it was dirty, the bathroom was dirty, the person behind the counter didn't give a crap, and they treated you like crap? Well, that's one way. And then you go into another store and everything's nice. They're personal, they're kind, they care about your funds. They want to provide streets, schools, better lives, better community, better living as citizens. That's a good 7-Eleven. We're living in a bad 7-Eleven. Thank you.
Keisha Goodwin.
Good evening, Board of Estimates. I wanted to first start off by giving kudos to Mayor Pugh. I want to first express that I'm content with your first 2 school board appointees and the transportation you provided to the students for the March 24th event. With this being said, I expect to see more money from the city being spent on public education. Can you please uphold what you said, which is 35% of the city's budget going towards public education? Right now, it's currently 21. Did you know schools are not adequately funded, even though the state provides majority of the budget? Did you know that 40 traditional schools have been closed in the Black Butterfly, while charter schools have been opened? When schools are closed, this displaces teachers, causing them to be surplused. If support staff doesn't find a position in a year, they are laid off. If teachers don't find a position within 2 years, they are laid off. So the numbers that you received last year about layoffs actually is greater when you add on those who are surplused and haven't found a permanent position. So my question here is, when I looked at your educational chart of the money going towards education, I did not see the $10 million that was promised for the Fix the Gap going towards the deficit to help retain teachers. However, I did see money in a risk management, and I've seen an increase in facilities. So facility costs is totally separate from the operating budget, which pays for teachers, paraprofessionals, and other staff members. So I would like to know, where's the $10 million for the upcoming school year? Who oversees city schools' budget? Because right now we have 46 schools receiving almost $1 billion, while 125 schools receive $385 million subtotal. That's absurd. So can someone please help me understand who looks over city school budgets and where's the $10 million?
We'll have you speak to Ms. Senemy after we finish. Okay. Brent Fuller.
Hello, my name is Brent Fuller. I'm over in the Pigtown area. And first, I want to thank all of you for your service. You all have very difficult jobs and have to make a lot of difficult decisions. I appreciate
talking to Mike.
Oh, and I appreciate you guys having this event tonight, too. It's great for all these impassioned citizens to be able to come and talk. It's good. Looking at the charts that were just up, there's 5 pillars, a vision of Baltimore City. And I can think of one thing that actually helps and influences all of those pillars quite a bit. And it's the IT infrastructure that literally supports the city operating every day. I know for many years it's been horribly underfunded, right? It just happens. There's tough decisions that have to be made. But I really think the time has come for Baltimore to invest and fix the IT infrastructure. A lot of topics that have come up today, everything from Department of Public Works support, the police department accountability, all of these things are supported by an IT structure that is breaking and on the verge of breaking. I would urge all of you I want you guys to accomplish your vision, right? I think it's great. I'm encouraged by the city. I think investing in the IT infrastructure and modernizing the fabric that this city sits on is probably one of the most effective ways that you will get return on your investment and be able to make this city succeed. So I would just urge that you allocate some more budget to fixing this, because it will increase the money and availability you guys have to go into the future to support all these things that have been mentioned by all the people here today. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Looked like somebody scratched out their name. It looked like Sharita Jackson. Did you sign up to testify?
You called her name already.
I did? Okay. She must have signed up twice. Okay, Travis Robertson.
Good evening, board. My name is Travis Robertson. I'm a minister, educator, business owner, advocate, activist, and most of all, law student, student attorney candidate. It's the duty of the mayor, the city council, and the city council president to take the tax dollars and provide quality services for the city of Baltimore and those that live in the city of Baltimore. And it's the duty of the city council to draft up legislation that's going to benefit all of Baltimore and not some of Baltimore. I encourage you to take some of the tax dollars that you get and create an affordable housing program, create homeowners, i.e. the Dollar House program, and build up the value of the city, East and West Baltimore. And also invest in young men and women who want to start businesses in the city of Baltimore. Because, I mean, a lot of young people, a lot of older people want to start businesses in the city. And I think that y'all need to connect them to MECU, people that can offer them opportunities to get funding to start their own business. Take $10 million from the Baltimore City Police Department budget, and some of the money from the overtime you pay these police officers, and really invest in safe streets and bring back the power centers. Mayor Pugh, City Council President Bernard Jack Young, Administrative Chief and former CEO of the Enoch Pratt Free Library, Gordon Crabby, helped John Bullock, Councilman John Bullock, and the citizens of Hollis and Payson, help them with a building, equipment, and books for a new Enoch Pratt Free Library in that area, because there is no library in the Holland Payson community. Nobody should have to travel all the way down to Washington Boulevard or travel all the way up to Walbrook Junction for a library or to the Penn North. I don't know why that library was taken away in the first place. Guess you could blame Pete Wells. Thank God he's no longer in office. But please take time to spend some of your tax dollars, and I'm very serious about this one. Please take some of your tax dollars and spend some of your tax dollars on finding out and investigating who killed Officer Suter, because you know Detective Suter did not kill himself. We don't need out-of-state consultants. We have law students, mental health students, economic students, educational students who you can consult with so that you can be able to make this city better. You don't need to be taking our money, giving it to out-of-state consultants. And I'm going to say this one. Will you please fire Reggie Scarver, who works in housing and who is very incompetent when it comes to helping young women that need to be transferred out of housing because of their being threatened. It's personal to me because I have students and I have a couple friends who want to get out of the predicament that they're in, and when they call Reggie Scriber's office, he gives them the okie doke, and they have to deal with somebody that just want to work 8 to 5 and go home. And I take that really personal because of the fact that we pay him a salary every 2 weeks. We pay the person that answers the phone every 2 weeks, and they need to respect who's calling down there trying to get help, and he needs to respect when people call him. He needs to be doing his best to get people housing, and not just getting people housing, but people who are being threatened. The young lady that was shot with the 8 kids, I went to her funeral. I know someone that know her. She called Reggie Scriber many times, and he did nothing really to help her. Now, about 8 young people don't have their mother no more. What would have happened if Mr. Reggie Scriber would have really focused on getting that young lady transferred? And lastly, what are you going to do to help those 1,000 young men who were violated by the gun task force, a corrupt, crooked gang of the Baltimore City Police Department? Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Kim Trueheart.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Service 131 in your budget books is for audits. The audits department is getting an increase of $122,000. I need to know if that increase is going to allow the audits department to audit for performance of Baltimore City schools. Service 848 in your budget books shows a decrease, get this, a decrease in the police community relations budget. Now, I find that troubling. Service 848 should not be going down. It needs to go up. I see a whole lot of money going into homeless services. I think that's great, but we need details. I didn't see anybody from the mayor's office of homeless services who I could ask questions about, but I think that's important. It looks like we're investing more, okay? I have a dream on this very important day that our children, all right, are gonna be thriving in this city. And the only way we're going to do that is to be bold and innovative in our spending, right? I find it very hard to accept the fact that you folks up there are willing to draw a line and point to the state as the problem for educating our children. It's our money. You've heard everybody in this room tell you we want more money in education. It is inadequate what you're putting into educating our children right now. In 2008, the then mayor produced the first children's budget. I'd like to see that reconstituted. That children's budget showed us specifically where money was going. And with the onset of the $12.4 million in the youth fund this coming fiscal year, I want to see where that money is going. The other thing about the youth fund that is important to me is that I want demographic data on our children. I met with the head of the Baltimore Education Research Consortium the other day. She is willing to help us identify the demographic data about our children who are in trouble. And yes, we have children in trouble who need services. And if we're gonna spend $12.4 million on them, I wanna make sure we're targeting those who are most needy. We're gonna hire 100 more police officers, but yet the Civilian Review Board budget didn't show an increase. Those police officers that we tend to hire don't live in this city. In fact, the number who live in this city has gone from 22% of the workforce, sworn officers, down to 16%, okay? We need, right, oversight, accountability. The Civilian Review Board is our way of getting that oversight. When a complaint is filed, we need it investigated. They only have 2 investigators now. Give them more money so that they can investigate the corrupt police. Family counseling, investing in families. I could find no place in this budget that said we're investing in parents. We need parents in the child's life like nobody's business, right? We've tried to substitute for parents on every level. It is not working. Help the parent, uplift the parent. Put some money in the budget to help uplift parents so they can show up for these children, right? You can't hire a mentor to fill in, right? You can't hire a coach to fill in. We need the parents. I want to see a budget line item that invests in the parents, the people who we're counting on to show up and help their children. It's not happening. We can make it happen. This is like bold and innovative thinking. What do we need to improve the quality of life of our residents in this city? This budget does not reflect that.
Latia Hopkins.
Hello, my name is Latia Hopkins. I'm a lifelong Baltimorean and a proud resident of West Baltimore. I'd like to thank everybody here tonight. I see the passion, and I want to tell each one of you to keep fighting for what you believe in. A lot of people in politics may know me through Young Democrats of Maryland. I currently serve as the Mid-Atlantic Region Director for Young Democrats of America. I went through the public school system here in Baltimore. I'm a proud graduate of Carverville Tech High School. And thanks to you, Mayor Pugh, I'm actually a first-generation college graduate. It was you who gave me a senatorial scholarship when I was short on my financial aid, when you were my state senator. I went on to receive my bachelor's degree in law and society and my master's degree in education. But none of that really matters much. What matters is that I came back home to Baltimore. Normally I would talk about things that affect young people: education, job training, the killing of young Black Americans in this city, economic opportunity and such. But today I'm here on behalf of our seniors. My grandmother is a retiree. She has a fixed income through the Baltimore's pension system. And last year, when she went to the doctors, every time she went to the doctor, she started to get medical bills. And these are medical bills that she couldn't afford. I called the retirees department here with the city and was shocked to find out that you had approved measures to no longer cover 100% of the retirees' health care costs. It wasn't cut by 5%. It wasn't cut by 10%. It was cut by 20%. And it wasn't phased in. Immediately, last year, 20% they were getting the bill for. She's worse off now than she was before, and it's not fair. Somebody is responsible for the mismanagement of funds, and it is not our retirees. They did nothing wrong, but they are here paying the consequences. You all have the power to do the right thing. I looked at the budget. It said it saved you all $8 million. That is $8 million that you could easily put back. And you know, if you got to take it from the police fund to get it back for the seniors, it's $8 million. It doesn't even put a dent in the budget. I consider each one of you a friend. Friends don't treat friends like this. Friends don't treat our seniors like this. Dr. King said, in the end, we remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill, is it Wasser or it look like an N?
You have it.
Okay.
Let's see. Good evening, Mayor Pugh, Council President Jack Young, Board of Estimates, council people, everybody here. My name is Jill Warzer. I'm a resident and homeowner in Baltimore City, veteran of Baltimore City Schools, retired educator and fine arts administrator. And I want to bring forward asking for some assistance in correcting a great inequity. Currently, only about 50% of Baltimore City schools have a music teacher, and 3/4 have a visual art teacher. President Young, you've been all along very supportive of trying to get the demographics on the arts and physical education teachers in the schools. Mayor Pugh, of course, you started the Baltimore Design School, and their councilmen here have been very active in an initiative that's been going on this year called the Baltimore Arts Education Initiative. It's a strategic planning process between Arts Every Day and the Baltimore City Public Schools. And I want to bring forward, well, just about the 50%, the lack of arts teachers in our schools. If you cross the county line in any direction, every school has a music teacher, an instrumental music teacher, a visual arts teacher, and usually some kind of theater and dance program. This is a situation that's existed in Baltimore City since 1980. In most urban schools across the nation. I call it cultural disenfranchisement, robbery of children, its ability to develop skills in the arts that lead them to the ability to have career and be successful adults using the. I just want to bring forward, I've been reading the Chicago report on their strategic planning process. It's been going on for 5 years in implementation. Mayor Rahm Emanuel used TIF funds, provided funding for 84 arts instructors with the goal of transitioning these positions to be fully funded through schools' budgets over the course of 2 years. The program ended in 2015-16, and 62 or 74% of the teachers originally hired under the TIF program returned to teach in 2016-17, which speaks to the program's success in kickstarting arts staffing improvements. So I just wanted to bring that forward, and maybe that's something you can look at, because while we're waiting for the Kerwin funds to hopefully arrive, we can't wait. We've had generations of kids that aren't getting what they need in these areas. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Gloria Williams is the last speaker that signed up.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Board of Advocates,
talking to Mike?
and all of you people here. I live in the Park Heights community. I'm a stakeholder there. I own 4 properties, and I also run a business there. Currently, there is a lot of dumping. I listened to Ms. Bradley talk about her Brighton community. There's a lot of dumping on Spring Hill and Park Heights. 2613, and the lot on Spring Hill heading towards Ricestown. I took a picture of it. It is a disgrace. It is someone in the community that is doing the dumping. I just have not seen them yet. One of my suggestions is that you place a camera with a sign there, big as day, that says, you will pay a fine, be prosecuted for your dumping. Put a camera there. Put more lights on those lots. The people in the Park Heights community, don't get me wrong, they may live in an impoverished community, but they care about their community. It's not always the people in a community that are doing the dumping. It's people who come to the community because they don't have any pride in that neighborhood, okay, and dump. And so there needs to be a camera and lights in those areas so that that dumping can stop. My second concern is the bikes, the motorbikes. The kids come down the street, and it's a shame. It's a lot of seniors who live there. And you gotta stop, you gotta give them more recognition than a person in a car. Okay, someone said that maybe there should be a skateboarding park. They have it in Hamden. Why can't you find a location in the park at Druid Hill for these children to ride these bikes? You got to do something. You keep putting a Band-Aid on it and it's not working. Okay, somebody's going to get hurt and it's not right. You need to address that problem. It's a safety issue. You have a safety budget. The other thing is the police presence in the Park Heights community. Yesterday, I witnessed, I took a picture of it. I will show it to you. on Cold Spring, across from the apartments near the subway. One gentleman was sitting down on the sidewalk with his hands behind him. There were 8 cops there, 1 black cop, 7 white cops. He was sitting down on the ground. Why did you need to have 8 cops there? There are other things going on in this city that are more important. That's, to me, is a misdirection of city manpower to have those cops sitting there watching this man who's already sitting on the sidewalk. And as someone stated earlier, you have more people who work for the Baltimore City Police Department that don't live in this community, in this city of Baltimore, working here, don't look like us, don't represent us, you know, and you need to do a better job of training the Baltimore City Police Department. At one time when I was growing up, I'm almost 60, I remember Druid Hill Park had Safety City. We went from our school in bus trips to Safety City, and we really respected the police officers, because at that time, police officers' job was to protect and serve. Today, I don't see that. I don't know what they're doing. I see a lot of harassment, okay? And you cannot get a community to really respect you when every time you see them, that's all you see is harassment. I mean, I feel for these citizens of Baltimore. I am not doing any wrong. But when I see how they do people who they have to deal with, even if you're riding around with marijuana or whatever, why do you have to intimidate and harass people? That's not right. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I would like to thank all of you for coming out this evening. Your comments have been heard, and the members of the board appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts on this budget. The next steps for the budget process are as follows. The Bureau of Budget and Management Research will present the proposed orders of estimate for fiscal year 2019 to the Board of Estimates with any amendments or adjustments as needed. The proposed orders of estimate will be sent to the City Council for deliberation. Beginning in May, the City Council will hold hearings with city agencies on the proposed cuts and revenue proposals. The date and time for the City Council Taxpayers Night and a specific time for hearing dates will be announced at an upcoming City Council meeting and posted on the City Council's website at www.baltimorecitycouncil.com. Before we close, we would like to have a moment of silence for the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King. So if everybody could just have a moment of silence. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. Have a safe evening.